Hi, and welcome back to our next episode of Essop's E-Lessons. Today we'll be looking at an African thunderstorm, once again a Matric poem. This poem is by David Rubadiri. He is a Malawian poet, so we'll be seeing a lot of African context in this poem. Please remember to click subscribe if you enjoy these videos and find them helpful so that you can get a notification the next time I upload a new one. Okay, so let's get started off with the title. The first words in African provides the setting. We know which continent this is happening in. And thunderstorm refers to violent weather conditions characterized by thunder, lightning, dense clouds, and heavy rain. So it's very important to know that thunderstorms are native to Africa. There are many countries that don't experience thunderstorms like we do. So stanza 1 is quite rich in figurative language. The first line makes reference to the West. So we should remember that the West has connotations of colonization, right? It means people coming from the West with their lifestyle, with their culture, and imposing it on the rest of the world. If we look at line 2, it says, clouds come hurrying with the wind. So we know that the clouds are coming from the West. So it suggests that this is where the storm is coming from the West. It's almost as though it's implying that colonizers are coming and they're bringing a deadly storm with them. When it says clouds come hurrying, this is an example of personification because the clouds and the wind are personified. They're given the ability to hurry, to turn sharply, right? We see the personification continues into line 3. In line 5, it says like a plague of locusts. So this is a biblical reference. It suggests destruction, that food sources will be destroyed by these locusts. So a very interesting contrast between the usual view of rain in African society, because usually it is seen as a blessing, as something good for the crops. But this poem suggests that the storm is something fearful. Right, so line 5, we see the simile is compared to locusts, and this suggests that destruction will follow. Okay, in line 6, we're told the wind is whirling, right? And this is an example of onomatopoeia because it mimics the sound that the wind makes. Line 7 goes on to say the wind is tossing up things on its tail. And this is an interesting metaphor because the wind is compared to an animal hitting things around with its tail, which suggests that it's wild, that it's uncontrollable, and also showing us that it has destructive power. Line 8 tells us that it is like a madman chasing nothing. So this over here is a simile, and we see that the storm here is compared to a madman. It suggests that there's no reason for this destruction, no purpose. So stanza 1 is basically telling us that a storm is approaching, and there's a very ominous tone. It's very foreboding, suggesting that something bad is going to happen. If we look at the structure of this poem, we see that it consists of short lines, which helps to create a fast pace, and this mirrors the approaching storm. Right? If we look at the diction or the word choice, words like hurry, turn sharply, all of these suggest quick movement, and this is reinforced through the short lines of the poem. Let's move on to stanza 2. So let's start with line 9, pregnant clouds. So this is an example of personification because we know that clouds cannot be pregnant. This is a human quality. So what are the clouds pregnant with? They're pregnant with water, and this suggests that the water will bring life. If we look at line 10, it rides stately on its back. So once again, personification. The clouds are compared to royalty riding on the back of the wind. So what you should imagine here is royalty riding a horse. And we see that gathering is another example of personification because the clouds are compared to a group of people, almost like an army gathering. So once again, we get that ominous tone, that suggestion that something bad, something destructive is going to happen. So it's gathering to perch on hills like sinister dark wings. So the word sinister here means evil or menacing. So once again, reinforcing that ominous foreboding tone, suggesting that something bad is going to happen. The word perch and wings suggests that the clouds are being compared to birds. So there's a very interesting simile here. They're being compared not just to any birds, but birds of prey, suggesting that they're waiting for the right time to strike, right, to get their prey. Line 13 says, the wind whistles by. So we see here the alliteration of the letter W, and this also supports the onomatopoeia in the word whistles, which mimics the sound that the wind makes. In line 14, it says, and trees bend to let it pass. So once again, personification here, we see that the trees give in to the will of the storm. They obey it to avoid destruction. They move out of its way. If we take a closer look at stanza 3, let's first start off with line 15. It says in the village. So once again, a rural setting, bringing us back to an African village. like the title suggests. In line 16, it says screams of delighted children. So there's quite a powerful contrast here between fear and joy. If we look at lines 17 and 18, we see a lot of alliteration with toss and turn and whirling wind, and the alliteration here helps to emphasize quick movements of the wind. In line 18, it says in the din of the whirling wind. So din here basically just means a loud noise. Women with babies clinging to their backs. So the word clinging here suggests that it's a very fearful experience for the younger members of this community. Okay, and lines 24 and 25 are essentially repetition from the previous stanza. It repeats line 13 and 14 and highlights the storm's power. Moving on to stanza 4. We're told that clothes wave like tattered flags. A simile here where clothes are compared to worn out flags that are at the mercy of the elements, the mercy of the wind here. But let's look closer at the word flags. Right? A flag is a symbol of a nation. The fact that the storm is blowing away their clothes as though it's tattered flags suggests that the coming storm will leave this nation changed. We're told that their clothes fly off to expose dangling breasts. So this also suggests that women will be vulnerable as this nation is changed. Line 29 says, as jagged blinding flashes rumble, tremble and crack. So the jagged blinding flashes are basically referring to lightning. Rumble, tremble and crack, these are all examples of onomatopoeia that help you imagine this cacophony of sound that's brought on by the storm. In line 31, we're told amidst the smell of fired smoke. So it suggests that lightning has maybe set fire to something, so once again showing the destructive power of the storm and the pelting march of the storm. So remember we said that this storm was compared to an army gathering, and we see here that personification continues as though they are marching on and suggests that the village is in danger. Taking a closer look at the imagery of this poem, stormy skies suggest that trouble is coming. We see that a lot of the imagery here of the storm, of locusts, this all induces fear. What we should ask ourselves here is this poem about a literal or a metaphorical storm? So a literal storm would be, yes, there's rain coming, a big storm, maybe flash floods, and that would be destructive to crops and people. But a metaphorical storm would represent colonization. So perhaps the poet here is hinting that the African thunderstorm, the one that destroyed the village, was not actually a literal storm, but was colonization. If we look at the themes, one of the most prominent themes in this poem is the wind, a force of nature. We see that nature is described as uncontrollable, but another theme just beneath the surface is threats to Africa. So something like colonization, which threatens African culture. Remember to follow Essop's e-lessons on Instagram and Facebook to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our new videos.